smoothly. I've started the recording, so everybody will be able to get the recording after today's session, along with the slides and additional links and information, whatever we talk about during today's session. A few housekeeping notes that I just want to share with everyone. We do have several other CKG people in the room, so I'll introduce myself and then I'll let my teammates go ahead and introduce themselves as well. So my name is Maria Hart-Salinas. For those of you who have not met me before, I am the program manager. Like I said earlier, I'm located down here in Tucson. So I am adjusting to cold, rainy weather, which I'm sure is pretty similar to where several of you are today. So I'll let Ramona, if you want to just introduce yourself real quick first.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Ramona Lore, and I am located in the Yuma region, so I'm the Yuma coordinator.
Here, Ramona. Allie?
Hi all, I'm Allie Tenney. I am the region coordinator for Region 5, which is Northern Arizona, and I am kind of based out of NAU.
Thank you. So definitely colder than I am up in the northern parts. David, you want to go next?
Hello, everyone. My name is David Aldaco. I am the Senior Program Coordinator here in the Valley. I work with the schools up in Copper Corridor. So that is Miami, Globe, and Superior. It's nice to see you all today.
Kyle?
Hi everyone, my name is Kyle Hetherington. I cover Region 4, which is Tucson, that's not TUSD, and Tucson and Sahuarita, as well as Vail. It's good to see some familiar faces.
Karina, you want to go?
Hi, everybody. I'm Karina Malco. I'm the program manager for the Northern Arizona College Resource Center, and I co-pilot Region 5 with Allie. And thanks, NAU, for showing out. Go Jacks.
And Selena, if you are available, if you want to say hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm not going to be on camera today because I'm still feeling under the weather. So I'm here in Tucson and I cover TUSD schools plus Nogales High School.
Awesome. So, like I said, we do have quite a bit to talk about during today's session. I do want to give a few disclaimers that a lot of this information you may already be familiar with. We have tried to kind of bring together information that we've been getting coming out of ABOR, coming out of FSA and the Department of Ed, NCAN, and a few other resources. So some of this may be stuff you're already familiar with. Hopefully some of this information is also relatively new and gives you some good insight and good tips for how to prepare. I also want to say that if you have been following some of these FSA updates, you probably know there are some ongoing issues with the application for 24-25. Some of them we might have answers for, but a lot are still unresolved. So we will do our best to answer your questions if you have any as we go along, but just know that some of these things are out of our control and we will do our best to share resources and information with you after as well, as soon as we know more information. That said, if you do have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat. Either I or one of my other teammates will be able to answer your questions. We will also have time at the end for Q&A. So if you don't have questions or you want to save them to have more of a discussion type conversation, you can save them for the end as well. Our agenda today, we're going to focus a lot on the major changes that are coming. We split it into changes you can anticipate for your students, as well as changes you can anticipate if you are talking to parents or what the FAFSA might now refer to them as contributors. We're also going to spend a little bit of time talking about some general tips on what you can do to prepare as you are helping your school, your community, your students and parents with the FAFSA, specifically focusing on launching successful FAFSA events or FAFSA campaigns on your campus. And we'll talk a little bit about where you can find some additional resources for FAFSA as well. So before we jump into the heavy stuff, I want to do a quick mood check. And either using the reactions on Zoom or putting an emoji in the chat, how would you say, or which emoji would you say best represents how you feel about all of the updates that have been announced and that are coming for 2024-2025 FAFSA? I'll give everyone a few minutes to put in the chat. Kyle, I see a scared emoji. Mr. Preeny, 9, side eye. Yep. Say sad face. Yep. More side eyes. Yes. More sad faces. Nobody's totally loving it. Nobody's just like thrilled, overjoyed, jumping. Totally fair. That the side eye is like 100% how I think 90% of our schools have been feeling, how we have been feeling. Yes, Aubrey, there are too many errors right now, and we'll talk a little bit about some of that. A lot of the changes that have come to FAFSA are well-intentioned, and theoretically, once everything is cleaned up and ready to go, it will be a little bit smoother. But this is a transition period, so we're definitely experiencing a lot of difficulties and hiccups along the way, which hopefully will get better as we go along. So 2024-2025 FAFSA opened on December 31st. If anyone worked with students or was actively involved with a student in your life at that point, you know that December 31st was not a good day to try to get on FAFSA. I have a 18-year-old brother who is a senior in high school right now. And, he had it on his calendar, 8 a.m., wake up, go on FAFSA, and it was down the entire day. We could not get on. We were definitely struggling. And it took us a few days to be able to get on. I think he was finally able to go into the application by January 3rd, but that was the experience for a lot of students and parents. FSA did announce pretty shortly thereafter that this is what they're considering their soft launch period. Last they said it was going to be a soft launch period throughout the rest of the month of January, during which time the application may be down completely, the website may be unavailable, or there may be issues and errors that come up as they work to make adjustments to both the website and the application. Aubrey, as you mentioned, there are still lots of errors that come up, and if anyone has been working with students lately, you know that those errors continue to cause issues and delays for both the students and the parents as they are completing the application. The hope or the goal with the application changes is that this is a simplified process. Really what that means is that there are now questions that are kind of isolated based on your role as a participant or a contributor in the application. So students will only see questions that are relevant to them as a student. Parents, spouses, any other contributors will only see questions that are relevant to them based on their role as a parent or a spouse. So there will be fewer questions depending on which version of the application. If you combined them, probably still pretty close to the same number of questions we had previously. But it is going to be a little bit, or the goal is that it's going to be a little bit more streamlined based on your role. There have also been a few changes to language in the application. So you've heard me say it a lot already that now parents or spouses or anybody using the application will be known as a contributor. EFC formula, or the estimated family contribution, has been adjusted a little bit, the formula itself, and it has been renamed to the Student Aid Index, which I know was in use several years ago, and now it has come back. One of the anticipated changes is that this is going to be a positive or lead to positive impact for lower income and single parent households, but it might present some difficulties or potentially negative impacts for middle to upper income households, especially with some questions being removed about how many students or how many people in the household are currently college students. And we'll talk about how to adjust or how to work with your students through some of those questions. A couple of other changes in language to note. Like I said, EFC, or the Expected Family Contribution formula, is now SAI, Student Aid Index. Household size is now going to be known as family size, but they're asking the same question. Parent, student, spouse, anybody who is working on the FSA application are all going to be known as contributors. Student aid report is now going to be the FAFSA submission summary, and dependency status is now student personal circumstances. These are just language changes. Most of them still mean what they used to mean. The content of what it means to be a contributor or what your family size is, or the student personal circumstances are still what you would know previously from working with students on their dependency status, household size, student aid report, etc. So let's jump into some changes specific just to students, and we'll start with what is staying the same. The process for students to get an FSA ID or to create an account through studentaid.gov is staying the same. Hopefully, if you've worked with students, every student that you've worked with has already created their FSA ID, and it's a pretty straightforward process. You have to answer a few demographic questions, put in your social security number, date of birth, and then just answer a little, provide some information for identity verification purposes, but it's staying pretty much the same as it used to be. There are still options for an online and a paper application, and the application continues to be available for students in both English and Spanish. There are lots of resources on the FSA website for students who are completing the application in Spanish, and we can find some resources for you in other places if you are working with students who speak other languages. So we have resources in French, in Portuguese, in Chinese, and all kinds of different languages that we can share with you. Now to what is changing. One of the biggest changes, and I mentioned this earlier, is that this is a role-based application process. So what that means is that previously students could call parents and maybe get them to give them information over the phone, and the student could just type it in on the parent's behalf. The only role that the parents had was that they needed to sign at the end, whether it was a digital signature through their FSA ID, or they would sign a paper form in person. Now, a student will only have access to their questions that are isolated to the student role. So they won't be able to work with their parents in the same way. Parents will need to create their own FSA ID and complete their own application section themselves. All contributors, so parents and students, must consent to have their federal tax information transferred directly into the FAFSA form via direct data exchange. So even if a student has never had a job before or has very minimum income, part-time work where they made maybe, $6,000 in a year, they still need to provide consent so that the IRS can retrieve that information and put it directly into the FAFSA. This direct data exchange tool is also the way that FAFSA is now going to determine household or family size. It is no longer an option where students or parents can go in there and manually change it. It is going to be automatically filled in based on this IRS retrieval tool. Students will now be able to list up to 20 colleges and universities that they want to send their FAFSA information to. whereas before they only had room for up to 10. Now we have had a handful of students ask us, what happens if I want to submit to more than 20? It's very unlikely that they want to, but if that happens, the process is still the same, where students will need to complete the application fully, parents will need to complete their application fully, and then once they have their 20 original schools submitted, they could go back into the FAFSA, submit a correction, and add or exchange, you know, the extra 5 or 10 or however many other schools that they want to go, or they want to send their FAFSA information to. The last major change, and one of the changes that we've seen a lot of issues with lately, is that students must now invite contributors, so that includes parents or spouses, to complete the application. Now, one of the questions that we've seen a lot with the role-based application process is who is a contributor and who should be involved in completing the FAFSA. We have this really handy flow chart. It doesn't answer all questions, but it really helps with most. If a student is in a household where parents are married to each other, whether it's biological or adoptive parents, and the parents filed taxes jointly, then you only need to have one parent contribute to the FAFSA. So you only have one person. If the parents are married but did not file joint taxes, then both parents, parent A and B. So if parents are divorced and now there's a step parent who adopted, then both people need to complete the FAFSA if they both put the student as a dependent. Now, if your parents are divorced and not remarried, then the person who will be contributing to your FAFSA is whomever contributed to the student the most financially. That is going to be determined by the student. So even if there is parent A that made $130,000 last year and parent B made $40,000 last year, if the parent that contributed to the student most financially is parent B that made $40,000, that is who needs to complete the FAFSA. Doesn't necessarily matter that one parent made the most money. Now, will this trigger flags or, you know, make any kind of alerts to FAFSA for verification? Potentially. Doesn't matter who the parents listed as a dependent or which parent listed student as a dependent in their taxes, not necessarily. So it's going to be a tricky conversation that you want to have with your students, and you want to make sure that you can let your students know they need to verify or be able to have some kind of proof that, yes, the information I am submitting is correct, and this parent is the person who contributed the most to me. When it comes to questions about child support, that is not considered income. So that is not something that would be counted as a parent who supported a student the most financially. So if parent A, who makes $130,000, pays child support to parent B, that does not mean that the student is receiving financial support from parent A. I know it's confusing, but just go along with that. If you do have more questions about this, we can talk a little bit more later on, but use this resource, use this nice handy little flow chart. Another thing to know about the FAFSA, which most of your students hopefully are aware of, when we're talking about a contributor or a parent, we're only talking about a biological or adoptive parent. So if a student has a legal guardian, say they live with their grandmother or an uncle or a cousin or anybody else who is technically a legal guardian, that is not the person who completes the FAFSA. It needs to be a biological or adoptive parent. The only circumstances in which this is not the case is if the student has been legally emancipated, if they are part of the foster system, or if they have been homeless. There are a couple of exceptions in that realm, and the FAFSA will ask them questions to verify that that is their position. But if the parent or if the student still has a parent, biological or adoptive, that is a person who completes the FAFSA, not a legal guardian. So this is repeating some of the information again. Each person who is going to be a contributor, whether it's parent, student, spouse, sometimes up to 3 people are going to be filling in the FAFSA, will have to create their own FSA ID and complete their section of the FAFSA separately. The application can be started by anyone who is going to be a contributor, and then they will invite the other people to participate. Now, what I would strongly recommend, if you have been working with students or parents already, is that the students start the application first. It can still be a little bit tricky because oftentimes students don't know their own social security number, let alone their parents' social security number. But it makes it a little bit easier for FSA to kind of link the applications that way. However, a parent or a spouse can start the application first and then invite the student to be a contributor and participate for their section of the FAFSA. When somebody is inviting someone to participate as a contributor in a FAFSA, there are a few key pieces of information that the student needs to know, or the person needs to know. You need to have the valid email addresses for everyone you're inviting, their date of birth, their social security number, if they have one, and their legal name. The legal name is one of the issues that has come up a lot, as well as email address, especially for students whose parents maybe have immigrated or have recently married, and so there have been name changes. So you want to make sure that when you are adding or inviting a contributor, that you get the email address down exactly and you get the legal name exactly. So if there's a hyphen, or if there is a capitalization or a different spelling for the names, you want to make sure that you know which one is the correct legal one, so that you can get the person the information and they can join as a contributor to the application. Once the invite to contribute has been sent out, contributors will receive an email and a reminder to complete the FAFSA. These reminders will be sent out to their emails at 7-day and 14-day increments. And this is a change, or this is not a new thing that has happened, but this is something that we are running into more because of the issues with FAFSA. If there is no activity on the application for 45 days, the application will need to be restarted. So if the student is sending an email to their parent or to their spouse saying, I need you to contribute to my FAFSA, and parent puts it off for 45 days, then the student will need to go back in and start the application all over. So it is really, really important that you stress to your students and to your parents that they need to go in at the 45-day or before the 45-day mark, or else they're going to need to redo a lot of the work again. Both students and contributors, or all contributors, students, parents, spouses, will have access to different questions based on the role, and everyone will be will have a section where they need to sign the application once they complete. The FAFSA submission summary, which again is now what we're calling the SAR, or the student aid report, is only going to appear, or will appear in different forms based on your role as the contributor in the application. If you are the student and everyone has completed their section of the application, you will get a FAFSA submission summary that looks pretty similar to what the student aid report used to. You'll have numbers, you'll be able to see what your Pell Grant eligibility is, you'll be able to see information about what your expected contribution might be. If you are a contributor, your submission summary is just going to say, congratulations, you've completed your app or your section of the application. Well done. If you are a student and you get to the end of your application, but your contributor has not signed it yet, then that is the same response you will get. Your FAFSA submission summary will just say, congratulations, you completed the FAFSA, and then you'll have to wait until your contributor signs their section in order to get the FAFSA summary with the numbers and the Pell Grant eligibility and all of that extra information. I'm seeing a couple questions. Students shared that their mom is a foster parent and was nervous about the income. Yeah, so a student who is in foster would be independent.
Yeah, but my question was more in regards to a mom who is a foster parent.
Oh, their
So I
biological
said-
mom is a foster parent.
Right, not the biological, right?
Okay.
So
Okay,
I think the way the state looks at it is it's not pay for your care as a foster parent, but it's money that goes to the kid. Who's in
right.
foster care, right? Okay, that's how I interpreted it myself. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, the income and the contributor questions are always kind of tricky because there are so many different variations, but
And there's a lot of double negatives. I just want to say that it's so annoying.
I know, I know. So there have been a couple changes to the Pell Grant eligibility as well that I want to talk about. Pell Grant eligibility will now be determined in 3 steps, and it has a kind of wider range as far as what that looks like. Maximum Pell Grant is now going to be based on family size, adjusted gross income, and poverty guidelines. So students who qualify for a maximum Pell Grant will have an SAI between negative $1,500 and $0. The amount of the Pell Grant, I think, is maximum amount for the Pell Grant is about 6,000 something. I can't remember the exact numbers, but we can look it up and get that for you. It's gone up a little bit since last year, but not a whole lot, just, regular inflation adjustments. 7,350, $395, something like that. Thank you, both Kirk and Audrey. But so the maximum Pell Grant, if a student gets to that FAFSA submission summary and it says their SAI is between negative 1,500 and $0, then they are eligible for the maximum Pell. If they do not qualify for the maximum Pell, they can still qualify for some based on their student aid index. If that SAI is less than the maximum Pell Grant award for that aid year, then they'll be able to receive some amount of Pell if their SAI is anywhere between $0 and $7,000. Minimum Pell Grant is now going to be awarded for applicants whose SAI is greater than the maximum Pell Grant award for the award year, based on family size, AGI, and poverty guidelines. So even if a student's SAI is $7,000 or $7,300, they may still be able to receive some amount of Pell Grant, just a minimum amount, based on their family size, their adjusted gross income, and the poverty guidelines. That is as much information as we know right now with how Pell Grant is going to be distributed. I assume our college and university partners will have a little bit more to do with this as the aid gets awarded out to students. But theoretically, this makes a few more people eligible for some aid, not maximum aid, but some. Now we're going to jump into our changes for parents And a lot of this, again, is going to be similar to what we saw in changes for students. So what's staying the same? Again, you'll still have options for an online or paper application, and the application continues to be available in English and Spanish. But the major changes is going to be determined on those role-based questions and who is going to be a contributor. So if a student has divorced parents, it is no longer going to be determined, or which parent contributes information is no longer going to be determined based on who the student lives with most of the year. Now it is going to be based on who contributes the most financially to the student. All contributors, again, must create their own FSA ID, including if both parents are married and file taxes jointly. You might have situations where you're going to need 3 people to complete an FSA ID and an application instead of just 1 or 2. There is a process for individuals without an without a social security number with a big asterisk, because technically it exists, it's just not working right now. And again, all contributors are required to consent to IRS retrieval. So if the IRS website is down, then you're going to have issues getting the FAFSA completed. Again, another change, family size is automatically going to be populated in the application based on what is listed in the parent's federal tax return. This is no longer a field that students can manually edit or change. So whatever parents have put on their federal tax return is a dependent or family size number that's going to be listed on the student's FAFSA application. Number of family members in college is no longer going to appear or count towards the student's student aid index, but the question will still be asked. And the reason the question will still be asked is because colleges and universities can still use that if they want to take that into account when considering different scholarships that a student may be eligible for. There have also been questions that are eliminated, like untaxed income from workers' compensation, unemployment, VA benefits, and pre-tax contributions to retirement funds. So those questions will no longer appear, and they won't affect the student aid index at all. So, like I said, big asterisk for the process for parents creating an FSA ID without a social security number. Again, technically this process exists. However, as far as we know, there have been lots of issues and it has not been the smoothest or most successful process. Currently, FSA does not have any workarounds. So if you are encountering issues for parents or contributors trying to create an FSA ID without a social security number, the only advice we can give at this point is to wait, and hopefully at the end of the month, at the end of the soft launch period, we'll have more answers, but we'll just need to kind of wait it out until then. However, when the process is up and running, which hopefully will be relatively soon, as parents or contributors will be able to get an SSN or an FSA ID without an SSN through TransUnion identity verification questions. These are going to be embedded in the application or in the FSA ID creation page. So parents will not need to go into a different web browser. They don't need to open a different tab. Everything is going to be on the same page. It is not going to run a credit check, which I know a lot of people have asked or been worried about because it is TransUnion. It's a different process. It's not running a credit check. There are a few things to keep in mind. Mailing address for individuals without a social security number is required to verify identity. However, that mailing address can be non-US based. So if somebody is living in a different country, they can still use that address to create their FSA ID. However, if they are inputting a mobile phone number, as part of their verification or as one of the two-step authentication fields. That mobile number, that cell number does need to be US based. We are not able to create an FSA ID or run this check with a foreign code. Some of the questions that are going to appear in the TransUnion check, some of you may have already experienced this yourselves when you apply to get a loan, or you're applying for a new renter space. Different areas that this might have come up before. They're going to ask you questions like, what are your previous phone numbers, previous employers, previous addresses? So hopefully you can see the screenshots on here. But for example, which of the following is the street name of your most recent previous address? And then you'll have options like Florida Avenue, Sesame Street, Langston Parkway, none of the above. You have to go through and answer which one is correct. Which of the following is a current or previous employer? Which of the following people lives or owns property in your address that you have listed? Things like that. If all of the answers are correct to those identity verification questions, and I believe there will be 5, then the identity is verified automatically, and theoretically, parents will be able to go into the FAFSA application right away to be able to complete it. If it doesn't allow them to start the FAFSA right away, what we have heard is that if you wait and refresh the page, maybe after about 15-20 minutes, it should be able to go through. But if it doesn't, then might wait a little bit longer. Now, if you go through the process and your identity was not able to be confirmed because you missed, you answered one of the questions incorrectly, then you will need to call the Department of Ed number to confirm your identity. At that stage, you will need to submit some additional documentation. The phone line is available in English and Spanish, so parents who are multilingual or who do not speak English will be able to get assistance if it's in Spanish. They should still save that backup code that will come up, as it will be asked about when they contact FSA. The forms that they will need to submit, if that is the case, is they'll need to submit either just one, their driver's license, state or city identity card, or a foreign passport. Or if they don't have those, they will need to submit a utility bill and a municipal identification card, community ID, or consular identification card. Again, the first step will be to call FSA, let them know I went through this process, my identity was not verified. They will ask a few questions, get that backup code, and then they will provide directions on what needs to be sent, where, and how. From my understanding, this is going, or they will ask that this be sent via mail, not email. So just keep that in mind. If that happens, then it'll be a longer delay to get the identity verified for those contributors without a social security number. All right, so we've talked about a lot of changes already. As you can see, my voice is getting a little tired. There's a lot of things, but I wanted to leave or share a few kind of just quick tips and recommendations, both from what we have experienced at CKG and at EdForward, as well as some recommendations from FSA about how to prepare yourself, your students, and your families to have a successful experience with the FAFSA, specifically looking at how to have the most successful FAFSA events that you could possibly have at your schools. The FSA has recommended a couple of to-do lists for the next couple of months. Unfortunately, because of the delays with the launch in the application and some of these issues, we know that there are going to be continuous adjustments. Hopefully, a lot of the colleges and university partners you work with are able to provide additional support to your students and parents and families, but you can always reach out to any of your coordinators with College Knowing and Going to come and support you for these events as well. If you haven't already throughout the month of January, they are encouraging you to make sure you're communicating a lot with your parents and students about how to prepare, what they need to do, getting them ready and getting resources ready for your parents and students to have their FSA ID ready and to go through the FAFSA process. A lot of people are able to complete the full application now, so you can start having your FAFSA events. If you are running into issues with completing the FAFSA, make sure you have resources available or that you are able to point them to kind of set up an appointment to come back in a week or in a couple of days to give them a chance to try again. Throughout the month of February, continue to host FAFSA events for both students and families. February will be a great time now that hopefully all of the FAFSA issues have been resolved, or most of them have been resolved. So students and parents can be able to complete the FAFSA in classrooms or during the day as you are meeting with them in your offices, as well as continue to share other aid resource events, including things like scholarships or making sure that students are familiar with the different deadlines that are required at the colleges and universities that they're applying to. And then, of course, March will continue to work with students and families to complete their FAFSA if they haven't done so yet. But you'll also want to make sure that they are familiar with college and financial aid deadlines, as well as get them familiar with understanding their aid letters and cost of attendance, as March and April that information will hopefully start to get rolled out for students and they'll be able to get information from the schools that they have applied to. Some tips for just having a really successful and positive experience with your FAFSA events. First one is to just have a clear focus. Who is your audience? Who is involved on the day of? And what do you want them to come away with? Do you want them to just come for a information session where they're going to get a bunch of resources, know who to contact, and leave with pamphlets or booklets about what they need to do? Or do you want to have them actually complete the FAFSA, and what does that process look like for them? You'll want to create buzz, get people excited, and make sure that everybody is coming enthusiastic. I know FAFSA can be really draining because it's such an important part to our roles, to our students' lives, to our communities and partners' lives. But if you can get, people on your team that are going to be enthusiastic and excited with you about it, find ways to make it fun, find ways to make it exciting, entertaining. Nobody says no to free food. Nobody says no to coming in for, extra credit or giving, if you have any giveaways that you can provide, make sure that there's some buzz and that people are excited to come and join you for this activity. It's always nice to bring people together and to use your community to have people come and support you. One of the best things I think about College Knowing and Going is that we are so enthusiastic about working with partners so that we're able to come in to your schools, not just us by ourselves, but maybe with different community college or university reps. Maybe we come in with partners in the community, either, just people who are really excited. We've had people who form, PTAs that will come in and support at FAFSA events and things like that. So build your community and make sure that you are getting all of the people that are going to be impacted in the room to support you as well. And then provide support and follow through. A lot of this information, again, you maybe are already doing, probably are already doing, but just make sure that you are committing to give students, like I said, appointment cards if they have issues for when to come back and see you again, or that they're getting access to the resources and know where to go and who to contact if they are running into trouble completing their applications. So with all of that said, I want to pause here and I'm going to share a new screen. This is going to be specific to where you can find some FAFSA resources. Now, I know for sure, Mr. Perini, you have access to this. And again, if you're still in the room, has access to this. Some of my NAU folk, you might not have it yet, but we can get you access. And what I want to share is our college readiness team course, which is available through Canvas. This course is kind of our catch-all for a variety of different resources that we have put together on the CKG team based on the different roles and activities that are going on with all of our high school partners and community partners. But I'm really, really proud of the work that we have done to get our FAFSA resources page as robust and as full of, helpful links, videos, downloadable material as possible. So if you go to our FAFSA resources, the first page is going to show you just a few broad kind of general information. A lot of this is information like our financial aid toolkit, a student dashboard, information from NCAN, or specific information from state resources like ABOR and Ask Benji. However, if you go to the next page, we have a section that's exclusively just 24-25 Better FAFSA resources. And we've broken it up into a couple of different tabs. So NCAN, which is a national organization for college attainment, has been really, really involved and really, really active in all of the Better FAFSA updates. So they have their own information page, an awareness toolkit, a training toolkit. They have webinars. They have PowerPoints that you can download and review as well. Federal Student Aid Resources has their video. There's some downloadable flyers, fact sheets, links to web pages. If you are working with parents, families, students that are running into a lot of issues, at the top of the page, we've linked their issue alerts page, which will bring you to this page that walks you through everything that FAFSA knows is going wrong with FAFSA. And if there are workarounds, it will let you know if there is something that they can do to kind of try to fix the situation, whether, like I said, it's maybe refreshing the page. Sometimes it's, delete an existing application and start over. And then if there are some resolved issues, you can come down here and see what has been resolved. They've been really good about updating this regularly. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure you do and are familiar with it. We also have a tab for Arizona specific resources. So again, we have information and videos from ABOR. We have slides from Ask Benji. We have information about the FAFSA bootcamp that is coming up. There's information that we'll be linking shortly on here about the upcoming Capital One FAFSA help sessions that Ask Benji and AZCAN are having out in Phoenix. So there's resources there. And then Get Schooled is a resource from that's partnered with College Board, and they have their own FAFSA toolkit. This has been really helpful for students as well, where there are helpful FAFSA resources to help students, parents, and educators get familiar with what they need to know to prepare for the FAFSA, how to complete it. There's downloadable material on here. There are videos and things to watch. So if you have any questions, if you are running into issues and want to know more, I really strongly recommend everyone take some time to go through our resources here. We also have a discussion board available on here, and I would encourage everyone to participate in the discussion board and ask questions or share resources with your fellow educators. This course is available for all CKG schools. So again, we have 30 schools across the state, and we want to make sure that everybody has access to all of this information. So if you have really great resources, if you've had really great successes, maybe you've had or you have an event coming up that you want support in, you can post it on our discussion board and we'll be able to share that out with all of our schools so that everybody is aware, and maybe you can get some additional support and help as you prepare for those events as well. So that is all that I have for you all today. And I really want to thank everyone for your patience and attention. I know that was a lot of talking. Hopefully it was some good information and you got something out of it. But I want to open it up. I know we had a couple of questions in the chat. Are there any other questions or anything else that you want to talk about at this time? And we can open it up to, like I said earlier, if we want to just have discussions or, you know, a venting session. Nope. Oh. All right, well, I'm not seeing any questions. That is okay. Thank you all so much for spending an hour of your day with me. I know everybody is extremely busy right now. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time. Like I said at the start, I will send out this recording along with the slides and links to all of these different resources and links or resources and web pages so that you all have access to this. Again, if you have an event or if you have any FAFSA questions coming up, please reach out to myself, reach out to one of your coordinators in your region. We would be more than happy to come down and work with you, your parents, your students, teachers, counselors, anyone to help them get ready and make sure that the presentation, or sorry, not the presentation, that the FAFSA process goes well. Hope everyone has a good day, and hopefully the weather gets better and you all get a little warm. So have a good rest of your afternoon.